me, mister, do you have the time? Are you so important that it stands still for you? Excuse me, mister, lend me your ear.
Hi Sharon, good of you to agree to do this interview. Let's start first by tell me, how did you get into Hartle and why? Was it a way out of the UK for you?
Hi Chu, thanks for inviting me to do this interview. How did I get into EFL? Well, I've always been interested in teaching. As a child, I used to try to teach teddy bears and the family dogs. And then when I started learning languages in secondary school, I tried to teach my parents German and then Spanish on Saturday afternoons. So I've always been passionate about teaching and learning. I like languages. I've always liked studying languages, so it's not that I didn't want to live in Britain, but I've always really wanted to live somewhere else as well. So putting those two things together, the passion for languages and travel and teaching, three things in fact, EFL seemed the best thing to do. So I did my CELTA and off I went.
So now you're in Italy, you're working in Verona to be precise. How long have you been there and what levels do you currently teach?
I'm working mainly in Verona now, although I do work in Bolzano as well, and of course I work online. So in my online courses I have students from all over the world, which is lovely. I have taught in my life everything, every age, from 6-7-year-old children through to pensioners, and all levels, from beginners through to proficiency, etc. At the moment, probably because I'm in the university, I teach mainly B1 intermediate levels, general English, and B2, and through to C1 and C2 academic English, so from an intermediate level up to a high level. But I actually have quite a lot of advanced students, students who are interested in reading and writing, so I do quite a lot of work on writing and discourse analysis to help them with their writing too. Yeah. Online it's a bit different. I also have a few groups of adult learners and we do conversation and we eat lots of cakes because they like baking, which is great.
That's cool. I'd like to be able to taste some of the cakes sometime. Tell me, what do you like about working in Verona?
Well, I've been in Verona for a long time. I originally came here in 1983, so you could say I've been here for a lifetime, and I'm not sure I even think about it anymore. You know, when you've been in a place for a long time, you really stop thinking about why you like it. But what I like about the university is that in my classes I have a lot of freedom to teach, not what I want to teach, because there are, you know, curriculum constraints that have to be observed, but the way I do it, so I can experiment with a lot of things. And technology in particular.
You're somewhat of a tech evangelist, aren't you? When did this passion start?
I'm not sure I'd call myself an evangelist when it comes to technology, but I've always liked technology. I mean, when the first computers came out, I mean, for mass public use at the end of the 80s and the 90s, I had to have one, and I was already doing lessons on technology then. I think what really made me use it a lot at the University of Verona was that I have extremely large classes. I can sometimes have more than 100 students in a class, and by doing blended learning, by doing in-class work and supporting it with a wiki and with work that students can access outside class, you extend the classroom, you go beyond the classroom walls, and you take learning into people's lives in a completely new way. And they too, they can, ironically, because they're using a machine, but in fact they get closer to you and to the others by using discussions, by posting their own ideas, their own photos, as we know. So it was that really that made me make a concerted effort to bring technology into the classroom, because I had used it before with smaller classes, but this was at the beginning of the noughties, and maybe my students weren't so used to it then.
So, what ICT tools do you use in class and out of class? By tech or ICT, I mean both hardware and software.
What I forgot to say was that what the hardware is that I use, how we use it in class. Well, having so many students, we decided after looking at interactive whiteboards that it wasn't really the best solution for our context, because it's quite difficult if you've got so many students to get them up to the board and involved. So it seemed to be easier to involve them through blogs or wikis, and that's what I decided to do. So what I use in the classroom is I have a projector and a computer with and I do have internet access in all the classrooms I go to, which is good. And the students have Wi-Fi access too, so now they're beginning to bring their computers. They also use their mobile devices for dictionaries and things, so things are changing there.
You've been using ICT tools for quite some time now. Do you remember the first Web 2.0 tool you used? What was your reaction at that time?
The first time I tried to use Web 2.0 tools was to set up a blog, and it wasn't at the university, it was with a group of adults. And I can't even remember the name of the blog because it doesn't exist anymore, but it was called English in Verona, I think. And one or two of the students used it a lot. It was a mega blog. It was a blog where I could write, they could comment, they could write themselves. And that's just about, oh no, we used it for photographs as well, but that was what it was limited to. It was very popular with one or two students, and some students never went on it at all. But that's, at the time, it irritated me, but now I'm okay with that. I think lurking is okay up to a certain extent, because people learn in different ways, and if you go onto a blog and you want to read what people write, but you don't want to comment yourself, I think that's okay. Up to a point, but it's obviously better. The more you put into it, like anything else, the more you get out of it. And things have changed a lot. I think also now people are more willing to post things on discussions, they're more willing to post their own ideas. I find nowadays it's really not a problem. Students are quite happy in the university to post their compositions, their written work. They're quite happy for me to then post that work back with, after putting it into a self-correction program like marking, which is another of my favourite tools, even though it's not a particularly new one, but I put those in and I mark them with marking with the correction code, and then I put this with the comments back on the main page of the wiki, so that everybody in that class can see those comments. And some of them we look at together maybe in class, but even if we don't, the students themselves find it very useful, because they can then go and look at what they've been doing. They can see the things that are good, the things that everybody has problems with, and they can learn from that. So it's another way of dealing with and building on emergent language, but by using technology outside the class and then integrating that back into the class, because that's one of the things that I think is fundamental. If you're going to use a blog or a wiki, you're going to use something outside class, it has to come back into class as well. Otherwise, students feel they're out on a limb a little bit. And that's one of the things that's changing, I think.